Yeah, so I'm going to start a new scene just to, I'm not going to save the changes. So this is the default scene. Every time I start Blender, it will always present you with a light, a cube, and a camera. It's kind of always the same thing. Um, we are actually not going to need any of this, so I can delete my camera and, well, actually I'm going to leave the cube. I can start with the cube. So right now I just have a cube. And what I'm going to do is the first thing you need to do is select a cube, and over here we're going to add a modifier. And the modifier that we need is the subdivision surface modifier, this one. You see? So I will repeat that again. So I selected my cube. I came here to this panel. Over here you have all these tabs. I selected the one that has the wrench on it. I click on the tab with the wrench. I go to add a modifier, and over here you have tons of modifiers. We don't know what any of these mean just yet because, well, we haven't gone into that. But over here we have the subdivision surface, which is the one I want to show you. And observe what's going to happen with the object when I click the subdivision surface. So I'm going to click here now. Whoop, this object, as you can see, has turned into a kind of sphere, a polyhedron of sorts. And what has basically happened is that it has taken the cube as a cage, and it has created a mesh, a different mesh topology inside of that cube that is subdivided, as it's called. Over here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the quality of that subdivision. Yeah, I'm going to increase the quality to give myself loads of teeny polygons. When you have, I'm going to show you in wireframe. This is a lot easier to use to see. So this is still a cube. Topologically speaking, it still has only like six sides to it. If, as you can see, I'm going to render that as solid. By the way, to do what I just did, I just pressed the letter Z, and then this context menu appears, and all I do is select the wireframe so that you can actually see details of the topology. And when I'm happy with what I see, I just go back to solid. For now, I'm going to give it a subdivision of 6 or something. And once we are done with that subdivision, I can click apply. And now this becomes a heavily subdivided object. It has loads of polygons, as you can see. It has loads of things, but you can see that it still has like 8 noticeable corners. That's the thing that it inherits from actually having been transformed from a cube into this shape. But this topology allows us to basically model things with it. This can become like digital clay. I'm going to go back here. And yeah, we have now the basis for sculpting. The sculpting is, you access the sculpting tool by, first I was in modeling, and then I clicked here in sculpting. And as you can see, the cursor changes. Now, every time that I put my cursor in a 3D object, I'm not pressing any button, I'm not doing anything. The cursor seems to just caress the surface. So I can just pass it around, and I'm not pressing anything. At the present time, the draw tool is selected. Each one of these is a different, let's say, sculpting tool. As you can see, there are loads of them. And I'm just going to start drawing things here so that you see. So the draw tool, what it does is it creates a kind of bulging structure. And I can continue. I can rotate my object by pressing middle mouse button, and I rotate. And as I rotate, then I press the left mouse button, and I can create, these shapes. I don't have like a very specific goal. I just want to show you the tool. And you can slowly craft your object as you go along. And we're just using one tool. The sculpting can work in an additive fashion, so by adding material, let's say, or over here, if I click in the minus button, it can also work in a subtractive fashion. So it kind of removes material, so it kind of creates a dent, you see? So instead of creating a bulge, it creates a dent, right? I can also change the strength of the tool. So if this is too Let's say if it goes too deep, I can change the strength. For this, I'm using a three button mouse. It's quite yeah, it becomes important to have a three button mouse when you're sculpting, because if you try to do this with your pad, although it's possible, you will get terrible wrist pain after a little bit, because it involves too many button clicks and too many things happening at the same time with your fingers. Over here we can change the radius of the tool, so I can influence the, let's say, the clay. Let's do a positive here, like an additive. I can influence the clay in much bigger surfaces. And yeah, that's just only one tool that I'm using. If I want to add clay strips, whatever that is, we don't know what that is because we haven't used it before, but that's what it does. And you can't go wrong with this. Just experiment, try things out. You can stretch the material. Yeah. You can create ridges, add strips. Influence some bulges, as you can see. So this tool kind of just bulges out. Every time you apply a tool, as you can see, the effect is symmetrical. So if I do a bit of drawing on the left, the same bit of drawing applies to the right. The reason for that is because the symmetry, the mirroring is applied here. So it's at the present time is applying symmetry on the x-axis. And as you can see in the gizmos here, Z is up, X is left and right. So if I unclick this, so that's a kind of checkbox. If I unclick it, then what happens is that any sculpting action that I perform becomes, influences only one side of my object. Over there I can create a deeper crease, for example, and slowly, you see how that crease is missing from here? I'm just creating it on one side because I don't have the mirroring active anymore, so I don't really influence the other side. There we go. This can come together kind of nicely, this bit. Yeah, this is a nice tool. I like it as well. You can smooth areas out if they are getting a bit out of control. I actually recommend to always sculpt symmetrically. There are reasons for that. You can use the asymmetries for, of course, our artistic effects, or find a more expressive shape, let's say, than pure symmetry. Pure symmetry can be boring, but using symmetry can get you there faster. And also a lot of objects that we visually identified as realistic actually have symmetries in them. You can apply the symmetry, of course, to any other axis that you like. So let's create another bulge over here. And now, as you can see, this bulge is on the other side, but it mirrored over the y-axis as well. We have these strange heads. I'm actually kind of ready to export this, and as you can see, if I go from sculpting back to modeling, and if I'm in edit mode, you can see all the vertices and the way in which they have shifted. I can go back to object mode. This is not exactly smooth. It can be smoothed out later, but for now all I want is I want to make sure that this object is in the center, because in order to be able to use it in a filter, so to know if the object is in the center, what I do is, over here there was this little lip, this little arrow, which actually hides a pretty important tool, which is the item, itself, the location of the item, rotation, scale, etc. So the properties that you would see in Lens Studio. These you can pull out by pressing the letter N as well. So if I press the letter N in my keyboard, it slides out, and if I press the letter N, it slides back in. N, 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 N. All right. So what I see over here is that because my object is selected, I see that the location is at 0 meters, 0 meters y, 0 meters z. So that means that it's located perfectly in the center, which is exactly what we need before we export it to FBX. And exporting it to FBX, I'm going to put that in my desktop, and I'm going to call this simple head FBX. I'm exporting this to FBX, and now I have another file in my desktop that contains this specific model. FBX is the file format that you want to use if you then want to import or export stuff to Lens Studio. And that's it. Well, I called the object cube. I realize now, and cube. What's going to happen is that when I import into Lens Studio, it's going to still be called cube, which might be a little bit confusing. So actually, before I go to Lens Studio, I'm going to rename this object. Whoops. So you can rename by pressing F2, just like you would do on the file manager on Windows. And I'm going to call this head. This will make it easier to find it when I finally import it into Lens Studio. And again, I'm going to repeat the action of exporting, and I'm still going to call it simple head. I made this process a little bit more, have a few more steps than it was strictly necessary, but at least you learned how to rename things, because in Lens Studio it can become a bit confusing if everything is named cube. This is it. So that's all you're going to need to basically create a sculpt. Experiment with all the sculpting tools yourself in your own time. There is loads here, and you can't go wrong with them. As you can see, it will always come out with some kind of shape that might be, it's good ground for experimentation. And as you get better at it, you will be able to control the tool a little better, like it's always the case with every tool, right? So yeah, take your time, experiment a bit with it, and I'll see you in Lens Studio to import this and apply some material to it and see how we can make a filter out of this thing. Okay, thank you.